Well done to all of you who've managed a whole day. In some universities, it's reading week now. But this is listening week for us. And it's good, isn't it? And I'm glad you're here still, because we've got some very exciting people to talk to you in a minute. You know, it's no surprise because you can see who they are up on the screen. But I'm kind of waiting for 3 o'clock in case somebody else wants to join us. But now, distance-wise, you've come from London today.
Yes. Yeah.
And you've come from
Warrington.
Anyone come from further away than that today?
I win.
You win.
Yeah, you win.
He wins.
Also with the coolest train on for a short day, I think.
Oh, thanks.
Well, that's not... Will, you think Will's got the coolest trainers?
Yeah.
My son wouldn't call those trainers, you see.
Right, high heels, aren't they?
I think that's very... It doesn't reflect so well on you, does it? I think they're both suitably dressed. That's the problem. You'll know this, won't you? And I say it as a mother, that any positive thing you say about one person in your family is a negative to the other one. So we'll try to avoid that today. So let's get started anyway, otherwise you can have bonus minute. So I'd like to welcome Gary from No Brainer Agency and Will from Rise at 7. But the exciting thing that starts straight off with is that not so long ago, or quite a little while ago,
Bloody ages ago.
you have been in this room before. In fact, you were kicked out of this room and the leadership walked out.
That's true, yeah. Right where Will is now.
I'll try not to get kicked out.
Yeah, I was here. I used to sit where that guy in the grey is there. Used to make that my spot, unless I was hungover and I'd go up there. But yeah, we got kicked out of here for performing a dance act to Take That, who were popular at the time, and Big Colin was Lulu, and it was a simulation of the dance that got us all kicked out, and the religious leaders all just walked out as well. So it was in this very spot. So it's weird to be back actually after this long.
So the only way out from there was up, really, wasn't it? And I believe you are up. I believe you own your own agency now. Is that right?
That's right.
I'm guessing now 17 employees.
Yep.
Yep. And you've been doing it for 8 years. And you've won the PRSA. I've been memorised this because we don't look at our notes, do we? He's won the PRSA Media Consultancy of the Year Award. Is that right?
Yeah. PRCA, CIPR, and we're shortlisted for the Drum as well, Best Agency Under 50. So we're really happy with that. So yeah, we're doing all right. PR Week, Best Agencies Outside London list, just like Will's guys at Rise at 7 as well. We didn't top it like they did, but we did all right.
I was just going to say that we're having a competition about sneakers. You have won the same award.
Yes. Yeah, we won that a couple of weeks ago.
Right, so now we've got that out of the way. They're highly successful. But I dare say your careers didn't go in a straight line, did they? So let's start with you. But just tell us a little bit about what happened after you were kicked out of this auditorium.
I wasn't actually kicked out of university. I finished
the auditorium, I said.
Yeah, just the auditorium, yeah. But no, I was studying sport and media because I wanted to be a sports journalist. Always wanted to be a sports journalist. But even back then when there were more journalists roles available, I knew it'd be competitive. But I actually got my break while I was doing work placement. While I was at university here in the summer, I took 4 weeks at a local newspaper and I was writing everything. I was writing, really boring stuff, council stuff, going to court. I did sports journalism as well. There was a guy called Barry Fry that used to run Peterborough United, and it was mad. It was a mad experience. But in that 4 weeks, I just got so much. And then on the last couple of days, there was a guy in a back end of nowhere, shot his face off, shot it with a double-barreled shotgun, and nobody wanted to go out and do the death knock, so I went and did what they call a death knock, so when someone gets killed. So I went out, got my little car, went out there, did the death knock, did this tribute piece that was all over the front page, and the editor said to me, "Love your attitude. When you finish at uni, there's a job for you here." And I finished here on the Friday and started work as a journalist on the Monday, which is fantastic. It's a great opportunity. I suppose it's more challenging for you guys these days, especially because, 24 years ago when I left here, you probably had sort of 10, 12 people working on local newspapers, on a local newspaper or a series of local newspapers. And now those jobs are few and far between. There's such and we'll be testament to that as well. they're surrounded by thousands of PRs, aren't they? Trying to get their attention, whether it's nationals or local papers or sport. It's a really, really competitive environment. But utilising, you know, that that work placement or experience, or just asking, you know, if you're really passionate about wanting to go into a certain area, just ask the question. Even if you get a few days there, you can whack that on your CV and it looks good. Yeah. But take the opportunities that are there through work experience, because it worked out for me. And I obviously went from journalism into PR and then PR into my own agency.
And we'll ask you about how you made that leap later on, but let's now talk to Will. So how did you start out? Hello.
Thank you. Really similar, actually. Like, I went to, not university here, but I did actually want to come here originally, but I didn't. I ended up in Sheffield Hallam. Studied PR. Always wanted to go into PR. Watched too much Sex and the City when I was a teenager and thought it was going to be Samantha Jones, but it didn't quite work out like that. But whilst I was at university, I did a lot of placements, so at local PR agencies, but also a charity. So that was probably my best placement. I used to volunteer like 1 day a week at a charity called Bluebell Wood Children's Hospice, which was just local to my local village in Sheffield. And I did all sorts in their PR department. It was really, really fun because they had a lot of like celebrity patrons, a lot of news that they needed to talk about, and needed a lot of help. So I think that was the best thing. I did that for about a year. Then after university, I got a job at an agency in Leeds, but I wouldn't have got that job had I not done that placement. And then figured out that I really liked doing PR and doing comms and speaking to journalists and creating stories. Basically, is what I really, really enjoyed. And then moved to a different agency in Leeds. Moved down to London, moved to another agency, and then helped build up the agency that I'm at now with a friend, which is really, really fun. But yeah, big emphasis on that work experience placement. I think put yourself out there when you're at university, get that experience and find out what you like and what you don't like, and really, really important, because I figured out I'd actually don't want to go into celebrity PR. I want to go into more something fast-paced and different finance and fashion and travel and all sorts of different things like that. So yeah, definitely big advocate of a work placement.
Finance, did you say?
Yeah, and I don't know why. I really like the financial markets because they're so fast-paced, they move fast, everything is impacted them. Even stuff like Sex and the City impacts the financial markets, which is wild. So we've done all sorts of things from a PR point of view. So thinking with a real open mind while you're at university and you're at work placements, you might not always end up where you think you are, but you'll still enjoy it, for sure.
Should we see how many times you mentioned Sex and the City before the end?
I'm a big fan.
Even in finance, you slipped it in.
That is so true, though, because you have a vision, and my vision was sports journalism. I wanted to be, there was a guy that did, tells you how old I am, there was a program called Grandstand every Saturday. Yeah, there's Frank Boff, and then there was Des Lynam. And Des Lynam was a guy, I wanted to be the new Des Lynam. I happened to be another Gary Lineker sort of took that role over and started doing that. But that's what I had the vision to do. So I'd use the facilities here and go and sit there and practice, like, you know, talking to an auto cue and like practicing what I'd look like on the screen, because I thought that's what I wanted to become. But even with that vision, you know, with opportunity, chance, circumstances, you know, it does shift. It does shift your emphasis. If you're keen on sports journalism now, you get into other things, like whether it's a celeb PR or sports journalism. You have a vision of what you want to do. If the opportunity is not there, you've got to scope out other things as well, and that's what we do.
I was going to say something you said earlier really resonated with me as well as attitude. Kind of having that open mind, a really, really good attitude, and showing that you're willing to kind of be flexible and work in different ways and be able to try something. I think is really something to be as a graduate, for sure.
And I don't know what you like, but I don't look at qualifications on a CV anymore, because I know they're all more qualified than I am.
Yeah,
and so that's absolutely fine, and I celebrate that. But what I look at is, what are you about? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? What are you volunteering to do? Have you started a blog? Are you creative? Are you volunteering? Have you got experiences under your belt? That's what I want to see, because then that shows attitude. And that's what you want to see.
Agree.
Attitude over aptitude every day of the week, because there's the stuff that we do, it can be taught, can't it?
I always remember we have a student. Well, he was actually someone we created a bit of a thing where he didn't go to university during COVID. He came and worked for us, and he's called Luke, and he doesn't have any university qualifications, and he's probably one of our best performing people within the company at the moment, because he's got such a good attitude. He loves finance. Well, we call him Martin Lewis. He's always doing extra, like saving tips for everyone in the office and things like that. But he's got such a good attitude, and I think that resonates forward. That he wants to try something, he wants to see if it works. He also then builds, like, he develops websites on the side. Like, he's got so many different skills that he's learned himself. So it is about how you push yourself forward and show someone what you want to do.
That's really good. So those of you doing professional learning through work, solve something for them. Make it a no-brainer.
Stand out, just do something that stands out, just go over and above.
Make it a no-brainer that they pick you later when they need someone to help them because you're the person who did it. It's been a theme running through the day, hasn't it? That especially with the last lot that we're in as well, before Noah, that if you can solve something, make it easier, go the extra mile, they'll remember you and want you back.
And it doesn't have to be hugely elaborate as well. Like, we've had people that have sent us like massive, huge things like creative CVs and spent so much money, and you really don't need to do that. It's more about kind of getting to something that's different, something that's out there. Like, our best application was someone who just sent a list of ideas. They went on our website, looked at our clients, said, okay, I'd love to do this. This is why it's trending. It's in the news. This is what's happening now. Didn't have to spend any money, but they got a job because they were just great attitude and actually showed what they could do.
Yeah, brilliant. So be yourself, that's the other thing, hasn't it been? So I said no-brainer rather cheekily to ask you, because your company's called No-Brainer, how did you land in PR?
So I was a journalist, but I met my wife at university. So literally, my wife Lisa, I met her 2 or 3 months, just 2 or 3 months before it was St. Patrick's Day, and we graduated in June. So we met each other, and then she went to live in Warrington, and I went down south, and we'd commute every 2 weeks. So, because I wasn't earning that much money as a journalist, and she wasn't as a trainee teacher. She was doing a teaching college when it was there. And so we only had to pay one time to go and see each. But you can't carry that on forever. So we said, right, we're going to apply for jobs. And Lisa made no effort at all. And I made all the effort. and I ended up putting in a CV for this public relations officer job at a council in Warrington. And I went there and I went for the meeting with the guy. And his first question was, what job have you applied for? And I was like, public relations officer. He said, it says on here, pubic relations officer. I'm qualified at both. And we just broke the ice, and we had a good, we had a brilliant conversation. It's just every conversation, every interview I've ever gone, I've just gone on to be myself. And if I don't get it for being myself, that's fine, because it probably doesn't suit me either. So we just did that, and they gave me the job, they gave me the start. So I started in the council. Then I had a baby, and I thought I need more money. So I went to a place called Mersey Travel in Liverpool. They owned the Beatles Story and Space Team Visitor Attraction. They did buses, trains. It was very political, highly political. I learned loads about political PR. And then I told my chief exec that I wanted to go into private sector because I didn't have any experience in that. So I went home and joined MBNA, the credit card firm, part of Bank of America, which is a huge organisation. And with the credit cards, we used to do what's called affinity credit cards. So we worked with like Etihad, Emirates, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, all those types of things. So I've got loads of experience working with football clubs, charities, and all that sort of stuff. But in every one of those jobs, I was always, from the very first day that I walked in, I was planning for my next job. So I took every opportunity to say, right, I need to build a network to get to the next thing and to get to the next thing. So wherever I was trying to expand on that. And while I was at MBNA, I got headhunted by Man City to be their head of comms. And I went for these various different interviews, got down to the last 3, and they ended up not appointing anyone. And I was like, I'm just going to go out and get into sport PR or do something different. I'm going to set up my own consultancy. Set up my own consultancy, and it gave me the opportunity. I could earn serious money as a consultant. So I was earning, $750 a day, something like that at the time. That was a lot of money, 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago. And then I built a bit of pot of cash, and I said to my mate Lee, "Come on, let's get this started." And I had him covered for 6 months with the money I'd earned, and then we just started No Brainer from there. So it started. That's
really good news. And you were planning ahead all the time.
Always with a vision, yeah, because I always had a vision to. I'm not very good at authority, hence the reason why I didn't do very well here. I've never really fit in a corporate mould. Find it really tricky, internal politics and all that stuff. You get it in business.
Yeah, I just don't like following rules. I don't.
No, and I like to be in control of my own destiny, and also I want to see my kids more. And I thought, if I can do this, I don't care working from 10 o'clock till 1 in the morning at night. If I can get those hours to go see their play and to do this, and when in the corporate world I couldn't do that. So you only get one chance for your kids, so I weren't wasting that.
Yeah, and you've been controlling your own destiny, I gather, and planning your own course. Tell us a bit about where you think you're going next, and tell them how you've plotted to get there.
So before we started Rise at 7, I was actually going to move to America because my partner is a TV producer. So we were going to go out to LA, we're going to do that. And then Rise at 7 opportunity came along because it's Carrie, who owns the business, is one of my friends. We've worked together for years, and I kind of said, oh, great, I'm coming with you. We're starting up, and I head up the London office, but soon to be New York. So we're opening our New York office in the next, I've been saying it for about a year. My visa's very, very slow. So hopefully going over very soon, which will be exciting. So kind of planned that out. It wasn't necessarily as planned as maybe you. It kind of spiraled out of control with the pandemic, really. It was kind of sped our growth, and we started getting a lot of US clients, a lot of kind of clients out there. So we decided, let's open an office. So we have 5 people there at the moment. Hopefully I'll be the 6th when I get over there with a visa. But I kind of, like I said, always wanted to go to the US, always kind of had that in mind. And this opportunity that came from Rise 7, I saw that I could go and been able to plan that out. So just making sure that we're able to kind of market ourselves out in the US, start to build a network, like you said, out there of people, whether it's even organizations in the area, but people that we know, everything from social, go out to events, speak at different areas, and help build that network, really.
That's really interesting. Do you think the COVID pandemic has affected your world of PR?
100%. For us, it kind of spiraled the other way. It kind of exploded. So before the pandemic, we were an agency of about 10 people. And coming out of the pandemic, which I know we're not technically out of yet, but as we come out of the pandemic, we're 110. So it's kind of spiraled massively out of control. And what was really odd was I was just sat in my bedroom for most of it. So I was literally like, what's going on? More and more people joined, more and more clients. And we had to actually at one point say enough, because it was kind of going that big that we didn't necessarily want it to. So slowed that down over the past kind of year and a half. But yeah, a lot of that time we kind of had to pivot, as the news agenda was changing, we had to pivot. So we created new services, created new different developments as part of the business to help suffice with that and be able to be nimble, be able to adapt. So probably our biggest thing, the pandemic helped us really. But yeah, not at a normal rate, which was very interesting. And I found that, and I speaking to different friends who started businesses as well. I have even one of my friends started a bakery business within our village, and she spiraled out of control because of the pandemic. So a lot of people were staying at home, wanted something fun to have, as a snack or things like that. So I feel like you were either one way or the other, and there wasn't necessarily a happy medium. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting 3 years it's been.
That sounds brilliant. Interesting you say about reacting to news in there.
Yeah.
I was looking at your Twitter feed earlier, and you've got your thing called Rise Live,
yes,
haven't you? Where you say you like to sort of not jump on the bandwagon, but attach yourself to things that are going on.
Yeah.
As we have quite a lot of journalists in here, and some people studying PR, there's sometimes a fine line between the two. Could you tell us a bit about what it is that you do that's sort of reactive?
Yeah, so Rise Live is our reactive-only service. So basically, we have different clients in all sorts of different industries, from beauty, fashion, travel, finance, tech. We have a grocery delivery brand that we work with as well. And if something happens within the news agenda, so on TikTok a couple of weeks ago, the Negroni Spagliati was a huge topic, where it was a new cocktail where Emma Darcy had basically said that she was her drink of choice. And what we did is we created a bundle that was on the Getir app that you could then go on and buy, and you could get the Negroni Spagliati, and we just pushed that to press. So it's about spotting something, reacting to it, and putting our brands at the centre of it. So it could be anything from milk raising in price because of the cost of living Lurpak, could be all down to, like I said, Sex and the City again, but something happened to a character on a Peloton. It sent the shares of Peloton diving, so we'll put out a comment from our analyst on it from a couple of our finance brands. So many different things, or it could be a new TikTok trend that sent a beauty product going viral. So it can be so many different things, but it's basically spotting something in the news, reacting to it, and putting our brand at the centre of it, but it has to happen really, really fast. And we're quite transparent with the clients that we work with. It might not be for them. Because it has to happen within usually an hour, and that story could be dead in a day, or it could be longer than that. So totally depends, but it's a really fast pace, and I think I have a really short attention span and no patience, so it's perfect for me. I really love it.
That's really interesting, and I was learning outside from Lee. We were just chatting about PR. This has a term called newsjacking.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
So some of you who are training as journalists will go into PR, and if you're in sport, I know that some of you have to do, don't you, because you work for a football club or something, and they want you to put out what they want put out, or it needs to be on brand. So there's already a grey area between journalism and PR.
Yeah.
And you were saying you've employed quite a few journalists.
Yeah. And I think because the biggest importance for me specifically, and what we kind of train all our employees or anyone that starts with us, is being really story first, like being able to create an interesting story that has got a really strong news hook, it's got a PR hook, and people are interested in it. And journalists know what journalists are interested in. They love it. So that's why it's perfect. We have a couple of people like in our US team that have come from journalist backgrounds. So we have our VP of content comes from kind of a few different more Marvel publications and things like that, as well as a couple of local journalists as well. And what they really know is like what's interesting, what facts are in there, what's the story. So I think it's transferable skills massively, and it's something that we look for as well, really.
So you do a lot of storytelling.
Yeah, it's a massive part of the job, and you notice it when there's a company social and everyone's going around telling each other stories. I'm like, oh, we're all very similar here in terms of everyone's telling stories about each other, and you'll never guess what's happened. It's literally everyone's the same.
Doesn't that sound like this morning here?
Yeah.
When we had a chap in from Spain, and he was saying, this story may not even be true, but I'm going to tell it. And there's a fine line between being interesting and extrapolating things and actually, well, obviously engaging audiences. Can you tell us a bit more about the dynamics in yours? Do you have any of that going on?
Yeah, exactly the same. We have to. It's where we get our best impact. Oh, we just simulated.
Oh,
we're on the same wavelength. I think we call it newsjacking as well. We have a team every day that's just looking at what's going on. Real-time stuff. That's where we get the best impact. You get huge traffic, particularly from a digital PR perspective. You can land a statement, content, a spokesperson commenting something that's trending. If the budget's live and you've got law firms or accountancy firms or whatever you might have, if you can land that, you can get national press and hundreds of links on the back of stuff like that for clients. So it's absolutely worth doing. But yeah, we're exactly the same. So we are a digital PR, traditional PR, SEO and content agency. So that's what we specialise in too. We're on a smaller scale to these guys. We've grown we've got a long-term vision, and we're sort of steadily getting there because we're quite happy. Whereas you skyrocketed. You've done amazing. Absolutely, Rise at 7 is a massive success story in terms of how they've grown and what you've achieved. I think ours is we've got a long-term vision because I really wanted to build a culture in the company and I would find it really difficult to build a culture in that sort of scale that you guys did. But it's different for different people, I know. But that's what we've done, and we've invested in things that way. But we've got a long-term aim, and that's what we want to get to. But it's exactly the same. Agencies like us, I couldn't find when I set up. It was years ago. There was one company, Epiphany, in Leeds, with Shackleton PR attached to them. And I was like, they get it. This is like 2013. And like that's it. That's what I want to build, an agency similar to that. And that's what we sort of strive to do. But yeah, we built it from just me and Lee really in my house on our own, and we bootstrapped it ourselves. So we've never had an investor. So we've just grown organically over time. We're happy with that. But it's good. We've got some amazing people as well. We bring talent in, like you say. You just bring all sorts of different talent in. There's introverts, extroverts, data people, storytellers. If you can get a mix of people that think differently, that's the perfect agency for me, because you want different ideas coming into the mix and into the pot. And that's why I'm just looking at people for who they are rather than what I want them to be. And it works for us.
I love that. Okay. This university is full of people who think differently, aren't you? So if they wanted to get in touch with you, would you be open to that, any of them?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
How are we doing? We're nearly question time.
I am, I was just saying, like that point about making a decision on what you want to do in your career and adapting based on circumstances.
Yeah.
The guys that were in Take That is a great example. When we did the Take That here, the guys are a great example, because there was Colin, who was mad into basketball. He was in the rugby team here. He was a loon, to be honest, an absolute lunatic. He is now an inspector at Merseyside Police, even though he had a vision to do something completely different. Franey, who was super good looking, so he got all the girls. Annoying. But he is now the chief exec of Foxtel in Australia, so which is the equivalent of Sky. Stevie set up a recruitment firm and made a fortune in specialist healthcare recruitment. He didn't want to do that. And Johnny, who I lived with for 3 years, he's now the manager of Canada the men's football team that's in the World Cup this year. So he's one of only 2 managers to do that. But he was in sport and management and teaching here. And so there's Gareth Southgate and there's Johnny. And I think Johnny was Robbie that night. I'll take that. But yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like we all set our path and we all had an idea in terms of what we wanted to do for careers. But actually, circumstances and opportunities take you different routes. And it's like, as long as you're open, and it's been about open-minded to what those opportunities might be. And to your point, Carolyn, if we're open, you contact us whenever you
100%.
want for experience or opportunities or to throw some ideas in the mix. But so are other people. It's not just us two. There's plenty of opportunities out there to do what you want to do. So make sure you seize them. Really
interesting. Thank you. How are we doing time-wise? 5 minutes. Oh, 5 more minutes.
That's gone quick, isn't it?
No. I think we should. What buttons should we press?
Oh. What are the buttons?
Tell me a bit more about what really makes you buzz in what you do.
I think for me it's that fast-paced environment. Like I like seeing something happen. Like I literally on my phone on TikTok and I'm like, oh my God, I've just seen that this person is, I don't know, we work with like B&Q for example, and I might see that someone that I follow on Twitter has done a hack of how to, I don't know, panel their wall. And then I'm like, great, okay, I want to look at the like search insights for wall paneling. Has that gone up? Okay, great. Then I can create a press story that I've just gone, okay, everyone's going wild for this paneling. This is how to buy it at B&Q. So I think for me, it's just spotting something and taking an idea from the beginning to the end really excites me. And also at speed. For me, it's kind of like, because like I said, I think me just personally, I get bored very easily. So I have to be constantly thinking of different things. So I kind of done one, okay, next bite, see what's next. And I'm not necessarily someone who would mull over it for weeks and think, oh, and also worry about something. I tend to just like go, I'll try it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll learn from that. I don't necessarily worry about the failure before I've done it. I'll worry about that after. Like, so it's kind of just going for something really exciting and seeing the end result, and also building that relationship, because there's nothing better than having a client that you've worked with for years, that you've made a really good friendship with, and then you've actually delivered something really like cool together. I think is something that I thrive off personally.
And you use influencers too, don't you?
All sorts. It depends on the campaign, but yeah, could use influencers. We could use like just from a press point of view. We could use a celebrity. It just depends what the story is and what it is. Like the Negroni piece that we talked about a minute ago. That was literally just we created a TikTok that was on their account. We put it live on the app, and then we push the story to press. So it just totally depends what the story is.
You can see how his enthusiasm and being
I
himself
love stories.
pays his bills, doesn't it? Being himself pays his bills. So
I think that is really, sorry to interrupt, really important to be yourself, and that's why, like you said, you wouldn't necessarily thrive in a corporate environment, neither would I, and that's okay. And I think that's great as long as you're passionate about something and you know what you want to do, you don't necessarily have to pretend to be someone that you're not, and that's one thing I've never ever done. Like put on a face or pretended to be someone. I've just been myself. Yeah. Obviously professional to a certain degree.
That's what that speaks for itself, and it speaks volumes. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Now you were saying earlier, well, last night when we were having a chat, you were talking about emotional intelligence and the need for some of that in your world. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, like I said, I don't hire on qualifications. I hire on it. A lot of it is to do with instinct, and I think that's like you get a sense of someone as soon as you meet them. My business partner Lee is like his process, his detail, is analytical, and I am more like I'm like off.
Yeah.
Well, look at that shiny thing over there. I love that. But actually, I make a judgment almost instantaneously about someone, and I think it's reading. It's because when you have a conversation with someone, you can read how they are and who they are and how they connect. Do they make eye contact? Are they confident in themselves? If they're not, is there a reason for that? But do they own themselves? And it's like and there's an inner confidence to that. Are they coming across as authentic to me? And then if they've got those capabilities to be able to have a conversation with someone, and they've got that sort of essence of story within them, and they tell it. Because our first question at interview is, if any of you come to interview, you'll know this now. But it's we're storytellers. We're storytellers. Tell us your story. And that's your opportunity to just tell it. And I'm not saying tell me your professional history. I'm saying tell me about you. And in that first few minutes, I've decided. And often you can sit in a room and sort of like you guys today, and it could be a sort of conversation or a Q&A type thing. And I pretty much know in the room who I'm likely to hire, even just by having that sort of question and answer session.
It's such a gut feeling. It's so weird. And also I kind of know when I've made a mistake as well. Like I can tell within the first couple of, and a lot of the time it's when I've gone against my gut. Yeah. But I've been like, I knew I should have said no at the beginning, and then kind of towards the earlier part of my career, I would sometimes question myself a little bit more than I would now. And then I'm like, actually, it is so right. It's that gut, and it's such a fun feeling. So interesting.
I think we should test that out, don't you?
Oh.
Who would like to see? Oh, great, Alex.
Oh, hello.
Hand went straight up, Alex. Well done. Okay.
Yeah, he's also sitting in the middle of the middle.
Okay. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Hi guys, I wanted to ask about the more awkward side of PR. Because, I mean, one example was Romelu Lukaku for Chelsea when he came out with that massive story, basically disrespecting the club, and I really felt really bad for the PR team of Chelsea Football Club. How do you deal with a situation like that?
No comment, I'm just kidding. I think from my perspective, I'm big on kind of honesty and also making sure that if you have made a mistake, I'm not big on football, so I'm going to have to, I don't understand what that question is, but I'm going to answer it anyway. but in terms of the country,
handled some crises.
in terms of crises, but it is kind of honesty. If you made a mistake, make sure you're admitting that. We've had a few things in the past, not necessarily as like a huge controversy, but where someone might have made a mistake and we've honestly come out of and apologised for it and also owned it up and also not necessarily denied anything or put it down. So for me, it's about transparency that I think is going to show a lot of value.
Yeah, historically, you think about 24 years ago when I left here and I was handling a crisis like that at a football club, for example, you would have a sort of very linear communication with your audience in that you'd issue a press statement, it'd be in the press, you could control that. With social now, it's completely out, you know, and the diversification of channels, you just cannot bullshit your way through something like that. So you're right, you have to deal with it honestly, but equally, sometimes that is making sure that it's not handled by multiple people at the club and it funnels through a central point that's got a handle of the situation. I've handled multiple complex in sport as well, multiple complex crises in sport, and it's making sure that you've got a single channel owning the responsibility for the communications and that cascade is through the club, because that's your risk. Other people commenting, other players or whatever it might be, or club staff or whatever it might be, just control and manage that and allow your comms machine to own the response. And then sometimes it's about saying less, but saying something but not saying too much. You can use, we're crafts people after years of doing this, of saying something but not saying much. And actually then what you have to do is get the rebuild, almost like the reputational rebuild plan in place. So Lukaku, it's about how do we get him in positions now in safe spaces, for example, where he's doing sort of charitable stuff or he's connecting with communities and start to rebuild that relationship in multiple different ways. So it depends what the situation is. So it's not a one size fits all. But yeah, just you can manage the situation, but with a divergence of social, stuff's going to get out of hand. But you've got to ignore a lot of the noise as well. There's going to be a lot of things that people want to react and respond to. You just sort of forget and just ignore and just manage the comms as best you can through a central point of control almost. I
agree, and I do think in terms of like making sure that you do put something out, but then also being a little bit quiet for a certain time. So we do Pretty Little Things PR. And that comes with some challenges, as you can imagine. But we had the whole Molly May situation that happened, which was really fun. And a lot of the times, we don't do Molly May's PR, but we do Pretty Little Things PR, and they come kind of attached a lot of the time. And she put out a statement, and then we just advised, let's just be quiet about it now and just carry on as normal and affect that. So once you put out a statement, not necessarily keep going back to it, just making sure you're just kind of, there's that. Now we're moving on. Yeah,
I 100% agree with that. Don't fuel the fire, and other news will cover over. You know, other news
I was thinking, look over there. I was like,
look at
that, get engaged. Lovely.
I've got a question actually. As someone that's been on the receiving end of random celebrities tied to stories to get them on the air, the one that always stands out for me was I was given Liz McClarnon from Atomic Kitten to talk about pork, which was just the most random thing. What's the most random celebrity tie-in that you've had to be involved with?
Oh, I'm trying to think what's most random. I've done some really good ones. I can't think of that much random. I did do once, it wasn't necessarily random, but it was like a theme of their, I'd worked with a brand called Power Now, which is like a conference calling brand. And they had like a above the line like advertising campaign at the time called Conquer the Call. So we kind of took that and had to like find within it what was interesting. And we used Michelle Visage from RuPaul's Drag Race. So it was a bit random that she was with a conference call brand, but it was talking about kind of I conquer and what they've necessarily been through in their life and conquered to get where they are. So I suppose that's the most kind of tenuous link, but it did kind of have that theme within it. But I do think one thing that I always look for if we are having kind of a celebrity advocate or something like that is why are they related to the brand? What is it resonating with their audience? What are we trying to target? What are we trying to, from my point of view, I'm always thinking about sell. So I'm like, what am I trying to sell with this product? And is that the right audience? Because we've done a couple of things recently that have been like, actually, this celebrity would be better aligned, or I can't really talk too much about it, but there's certain things, and we are quite honest at that situation, just that I really don't think that person would work well, or this person would, because they've got the right audience. So it's kind of thinking about our end goal that we look at as well, of what we're trying to do with it, for sure.
And our job's to avoid that situation happening.
Yeah.
If one of our campaigns was like, why have we got sort of like, you know, this randomer doing this random thing, then...
Did Liz like pork?
Yeah, I sort of got the link because I think she was on Celebrity MasterChef.
Okay.
So I sort of got the link, but it was just quite random, and everybody in the radio station was a bit miffed, like, why are you interviewing her about pork?
I think that's quite iconic, to be honest.
Yeah, Sally Gunner was another one that always got put up. Like,
I remember
every
one
other
of
week.
our guys for a client, they were saying they're a second-hand retailer, cash converter. So they're talking about they're a fascinating client to work for. They genuinely are. And we're in this like ideas session about what we could do, and we had this idea of like this supermarket suite where you pick up all the second-hand gear and just help yourself, and to do some sort of promotion around it. And one of our guys goes, "Why don't we get Dale Winton to do it?" Right? The chief exec went, "He's dead." And we were like, "Oh God," you know, like at least we chucked a few ideas around. But yeah, no, we wouldn't. I don't think we'd be in that situation where you do something so random that it didn't make sense. We make it make sense. That's our job, I think. For sure.
I think you've just devastated Zoe because she's just realised that Dale Winton's dead. So breaking news, Zoe. Breaking news.
Sad day.
Okay, questions. Okay, we've got Mohsin. Let's go back up here.
What advice would you give to students looking to transition from maybe a journalism and reporter background and go into PR and comms?
I would. Well, you're looking for
always
people, and we're looking for
experience.
Journalists. My first hire was a guy called Steve Bland, and he was a producer and journalist from 5 Live, Radio 5 Live. So worked with Chappers and all the guys as well there. So that was our very first hire. So when we started, that was important to us. Our most recent hire is Tom, and he's the business editor at the Manchester Evening News and the Liverpool Echo. And he's joined us, and he's transitioned across fantastically well. I transitioned from journalism to PR, and I found it difficult, if I'm honest. That first 3 months I found difficult because I lost the element of control and to some degree power that you have as a journalist to decide what's news and what's not. And I used to love that. So yeah, and actually to sort of flip it around and work, you've got to one, show that you're a storyteller, and you will be if you're a journalist anyway, and you've got the ability to write and create and a sense of news. That's a massive tick in the box. It's just about adapting those skills, which you'll inevitably have if you're in journalism anyway. Adapting those, because more journalists than not are having conversations, difficult conversations, interview techniques, all the stuff you need to make it work. They'll be emotionally intelligent as well, which is crucial. And it's just a matter of converting those skills. So when a journalist has ever joined us, I'm like, just give yourself 3 months to get your head around how this all works. It will come good, and you'll be confident.
I think it's really similar though as well in terms of like you're crafting a story still, but for a brand, not necessarily on the other side of receiving it. So kind of just like mirroring what you're necessarily thinking, like, okay, what is happening in the news, and then how can I make it related to a brand that I work for that's in the right way, and it's not necessarily forced. But I think if you were necessarily coming out of uni and you'd done necessary journalism and things like that, I think it's just, again, the same advice that I'd give to anyone who was coming out of university, whatever course they were doing. Do some experience in it, even if it's a little thing, even if it's working for a family friend who's got a business that they need some support on, or even if it's just for a charity, like even just a little bit of experience in what you want to do, test it out and then just show that. And also show that interest, that attitude that when you're going to an interview. So I think it's literally doing what you're doing now and just applying it to where you want to be. For sure.
If I was in your boat now, I would be tracking what job ads are out there and just have a look and see what's about. So you look at digital PR and the demand for digital PR people, it's huge. You can't find people.
Yeah.
So if I was you now, I'd be looking at those jobs and going, right, what's the volume of jobs? Even like copy a PR week or go on Guardian Jobs or, you know, just look on Indeed, see what people are, or LinkedIn, but just look at the jobs that are there sort of and think about journalism versus PR. I've done both. I've worked in both sectors and PR pays better.
I was going to say that.
It's significantly better. When I started, when I left here, I got offered £6,500 a year.
Jesus.
I know. And I went, no. We're giving you your opportunity. I was like, no, that's a joke. So I negotiated with them. I got to about 8, so it still wasn't great. But it was my footprint. I was writing all sorts of different content. The volume of stuff I was getting through was ridiculous. And it taught me to hone my writing skills, craft a story. You take in loads of data and information, you pull that down into 300 words of front page lead or whatever. You hone your skills. So although I was paid garbage money, it was my footprint or my path to that next thing. And like I say, whenever I went into a job, that very first day I was thinking, how can I use this job to get my next job? And every opportunity, every network conversation was like, right, I need to get there. And if you've got that attitude and mentality, you start to move up the ladder. And also, I've never been qualified for the job that I've gone for.
100%.
So, and there's a lot of people out there that go, oh, I'm not qualified for that job. Just completely go for it.
I think it goes down to that point of like almost not necessarily worrying about it, just trying it. If it doesn't work out, what's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly
so
that.
That's really important because somebody said that in earlier talk, didn't they? I thought this is perhaps more masculine thing than a feminine one, is don't not take a job because you don't think you can do it. Because I have done that several times, and I know certainly my sons would never do that. I don't know whether that's a gender specific thing or whether it's just a really good advice from now on for everybody. Is it just?
I think it might. There may be a gender lean on that one in terms of. I know a lot of my family wouldn't go for a job because they think they're not qualified for that job, but just you've got to go for it.
But you can.
I don't know if that's a generational thing though as well, you know, in terms of, because it's a bit like, I'm thinking about my parents with that. They would be like, oh, I've never done that. It's like, well, try it and see what happens. See what happens. And then I do think it is that kind of like leap for attitude as well, in terms of like, if it doesn't work, you'll find something else. And also you've got that experience of trying that, and then you go somewhere else to do something else. And you're never gonna, no one's gonna take that away from you.
Yeah. You've got to go for it. You've got to take the gamble because no one's going to do it for you.
100%.
You know, your mum and dad and your family or friends, they're not going to you know, create your career path. You are, and you've got to grab it by the horns and just go for it. What have you got to lose? Genuinely.
Yes, so there's no grounds for playing safe.
Yeah.
And you need to keep yourself in a Converse habit and a sneaker habit.
And
earn as much money as you can, doing something you love the most.
And genuinely, if you run a company like that, you're running the you know, so high up in that, and it's a huge company now. We're all winging it. We're all making it up as we go along, and everyone's feeling like, you know, am I supposed to be here? Everyone's having those thoughts. Whether you're getting your start or starting the career ladder, or you're running the company, it's like everyone's winging it really.
Yeah, 100%.
Aren't they?
Aren't they
I'm not
lovely
just speaking
people?
for myself,
I'm winging it now.
These are lovely guys. Let's give them a hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
I've just got one question for Will, actually. Just one question finally, which is, do you think the Sex and the City reboot has resurrected the franchise after the hot mess which was Sex and the City 2?
No, I don't think it has.
No, I don't think it has.
But I'll still be watching series 2.
Okay.
So if you haven't got a placement, or you want one, or you want something to do when there's nothing else happening, please catch one of these guys on the way out. You've given us so much of your time. We really, really appreciate it.
No problem.
And thank you for showing us that fine line between newsjacking, reporting on news, and attaching yourself to it for PR, all of which are great fields to go into, and you've been a real inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.